Peter wrote to people who felt like strangers in their own world. They lived surrounded by a culture that did not understand their faith. But Peter's message was not about escaping suffering. It was about discovering who they truly were in the middle of it. And before we continue, subscribe to the channel so you can follow this devotional series through the first letter of Peter. At the very beginning of his first letter, Peter writes to Christians scattered throughout several regions of the Roman Empire. Many of them were facing rejection, pressure, and hostility because they had chosen to follow Jesus. And Peter uses two words that seem to contradict each other when describing them. First, he calls them chosen. Then, he calls them strangers. How can someone be chosen by God and at the same time feel as though they do not belong where they live? It is within this apparent contradiction that we find one of the deepest messages in the letter. When Peter calls those Christians strangers, he is not saying that they should hate the world, abandon their cities, or separate themselves from everyone around them. He is talking about identity. A stranger lives in a certain place, works, builds relationships, and takes part in society. But they know that their identity did not come entirely from that place. In the same way, Christians live in this world, but they do not allow the world to decide who they are. The world often says that your value depends on what you own, how you look, how many people approve of you, or how successful you become. But Peter reminds those Christians that before they were rejected by people, they had already been chosen by God. The opinion of the crowd could not cancel what God had declared about them. Being a stranger, therefore, does not mean having nowhere to belong. It means belonging to a different kingdom. It means living by different values. It means choosing the truth when lying would be more convenient. It means forgiving when everyone expects revenge. It means remaining faithful when walking away from your faith seems like the easier path. And Peter does not describe this kind of life as something easy. He knew that living differently would come at a cost. But he also knew that those Christians were not walking without a destination in Jesus. They had received a living hope and an inheritance that could never be destroyed, corrupted, or taken away by time. Perhaps they had lost the approval of some people. Perhaps they had been excluded from certain places. But they had not lost their true identity. Perhaps you also know what it feels like not to belong. Maybe your faith is not understood within your own family. Maybe you are being pressured to do things that go against your conscience simply so you can be accepted. Maybe you see other people choosing easier paths and wonder whether remaining faithful is truly worth it. This is where Peter's message becomes personal. You do not need to change your convictions in order to gain a place in environments where God never asked you to fit in. This does not mean treating people as though you are better than them. It also does not mean isolating yourself from those who think differently. Jesus did not call his followers to run away from people, but to love them. The difference is refusing to let your need for approval control your decisions. Sometimes, in our attempt to belong, we begin to make ourselves smaller. We hide our faith. We remain silent about what we believe. We accept behaviors that we once knew were wrong, and little by little, we gain the approval of others while losing the peace within ourselves. Peter reminds us that our security does not begin when everyone accepts us. It begins when we understand that we have already been accepted by God. Perhaps you feel out of place not because God has abandoned you, but because he is teaching you not to build your identity on something that may change tomorrow. People's opinions change. Popularity fades. Achievements grow old. But what God promises never loses its value. Now, take a moment to think. In what area of your life are you trying to fit in when perhaps God is calling you to remain different? Is there a decision you are making only because you are afraid of being rejected? Is there a part of your faith that you have started hiding in order to gain someone's approval? Ask God for the courage to live with love, humility, and faithfulness. You can live in this world without allowing it to define your value. You can love people without giving them control over your identity. Peter wrote to people who felt like strangers in their own world. If this message spoke to you, write in the comments, "My identity is in God." Share this video with someone who may be feeling rejected or out of place, and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next videos in this journey through the first letter of Peter. In the next video, we will discover why Peter compares tested faith to gold refined by fire. Because perhaps the trial you wish you could avoid is revealing something about your faith that you have not yet been able to see.